Welcome to Across Africa, France 24's weekly roundup from across the continent. Coming up this week, the king is dead, long live the king. Papa Wemba, the late Congolese Rumba superstar, is accompanied to his final resting place by thousands of fans and well-wishers. His farewell mass and funeral attracts huge crowds in Kinshasa. Also, Tuesday marked World Press Freedom Day. Human Rights Watch highlighted the particular difficulties faced by journalists in Somalia. We meet one man who continues to report there despite the dangers and intimidation. And France 24 was in Senegal for the grand opening of the Dak'Art Contemporary Arts Festival. For over 2 decades now, it's been celebrating African culture and creativity. Well, first, this week, DR Congo bid a final goodbye to its Rumba king. Thousands of people turned out to Papa Wemba's funeral on Wednesday. The 66-year-old passed away in April after a 4-decade-long career that put him at the heart of the continent's music scene. He died after collapsing on stage during a packed concert in Ivory Coast.
The king is dead. Long live the king. A last goodbye to their idol. Thousands attended Papa Wemba's farewell mass in Notre Dame of Congo Cathedral on Wednesday.
I'm extremely sad because when he was alive, we didn't realise what we had. Every day his songs are always there, and now we realise that he really influenced young Africans. His music really taught us about life. It's not music we hear in all the parties, but it resounds in every car, every house, every iPad.
Everyone then made the final journey with him to the cemetery where he was laid to rest. Thousands wanting to say a last goodbye to the Congolese music icon.
This is the fruit of his success. It's because he did a good job. Because he was a very humane person. He's a child of the people. He's a self-made man. He started from nothing. He built his career by his strength of will. It's not just anyone who can do that.
For those here and for Papa Wemba's fans around the world, though he is gone, his legacy will live on through all his songs.
World Press Freedom Day was on Tuesday. That came as many journalists around the world face increasing risks on the job. Human Rights Watch has released a new report highlighting the particular dangers of reporting in Somalia. There, al-Shabaab extremists often target journalists. The government's also come in for criticism for trying to affect media coverage. Despite the dangers, many keep at it. Mary Colin Bell tells us more.
Setting off to work isn't easy for Munassa Mohamed Abdi. His job puts him at risk. A reporter for Gujug Radio, based in Mogadishu, he says he feels like he is a walking target as soon as he steps out of his door. He doesn't trust anyone, not even his neighbours, and before getting in his car, he checks for explosives. At work, threats often push Munassa to self-censor.
I often have problems when I'm in the middle of reporting on something. And even when I try to modify the story to avoid issues, there's always someone who isn't happy because my impartiality conflicts with their interests. So I have to face their anger. Sometimes we receive phone calls and they threaten us. It's very shocking.
Somali journalists are often threatened, and 10 have been killed since 2014. Police have been accused of failing to investigate or protect reporters. Despite al-Shabaab being pushed out of Mogadishu in 2011, the militants still carry out numerous attacks. Munassa narrowly survived one at the beginning of the year.
I remember one time being very afraid. A suicide bomber got into a journalist meeting. Suddenly there was a wave of panic in the crowd, and several of us jumped over a fence to escape. All the journalists survived, but the attacker and a waiter were killed instantly.
With elections set to take place this year, the role of the media will be all the more important. The government has also come under scrutiny for its treatment of journalists. Human Rights Watch has accused state security forces of threatening, harassing and attacking reporters.
Cameroon's president headed to Nigeria at the start of the week to discuss security with his counterpart there. This ahead of a regional security summit due to be held in Abuja later this month, in which the battle against Boko Haram insurgents will be more widely discussed. The Nigerian extremists have ramped up cross-border attacks, and Cameroon's northwest has been repeatedly targeted. Activists there have revealed a banner in honour of 1,265 victims of the violence.
A banner to commemorate all Boko Haram victims under the title Let's Not Forget Them. They want these deaths to be recorded as human lives and not merely as statistics.
The youngest victim was 4 days old, and the oldest was 87 years old. We managed to gather 1,200 names. These are not the only victims in Cameroon, but we managed to gather enough information on those ones so that they can be identified accurately.
The objective is to inform citizens about a war taking place far away from the capital.
We're really happy that our military forces have taken up arms against that.
In Yaoundé's military hospital, soldiers injured in the war reveal how tough the battle is. Special forces fighting on the border of Nigeria come here regularly to comfort their troops.
Our hearts are with you. Even if you don't see us, we're there finishing the war you started.
700 soldiers are treated here. Many amputees have been injured by landmines.
We had 3 severely injured men and 1 died in the explosion.
These amputees will not go back to the front line, but they are proud to have successfully protected the borders of Cameroon. They know they won't be the last victims of war. Experts say the war is far from over.
This is a non-conventional war, and even if we defeat the enemy, nobody will come to sign a peace treaty. Also, you know that this war against Boko Haram has another ugly face, the terrorist attacks, and nobody knows for certain if they'll ever stop.
The situation is still fragile in Cameroon. After Ouagadougou and Abidjan, everybody's expecting Yaoundé to be the next target for suicide bombings.
Nigeria recently made history by becoming the first sub-Saharan African nation to manage a European satellite. Nigerian aerospace scientists are now monitoring the Belarus-owned Belintosat-1. That means over the next 15 years, Nigeria will be able to provide broadband and communication services to 36 African countries. Our correspondents sent us this report from Abuja.
Belarusian aerospace scientists are visiting NIGCOMSAT headquarters to get a fuller understanding of how their Nigerian counterparts monitor the Belintosat-1 satellite.
For monitoring? Yes, for monitoring, but we're also offering internet services through it. Yeah, we use it for dual purposes now. These are your antennas for the SMS services.
Nigeria's decade-long journey into aerospace has reached new frontiers.
Nigeria made history because we competed among the big players in the industry in the world. Internationally, I know that other big countries from Western Europe also bid for this project, but we succeeded because we were determined to do it. And I know that it has changed NIGCOMSAT for good and forever.
Belarus is a relative newcomer in the field of aerospace. Like several countries, including Nigeria, Belarus relies on Chinese expertise. For the director of NIGCOMSAT, the skies above Africa are filled with opportunities.
The first step is, one, we could, as NIGCOMSAT, cooperate with Belintosat to use it as backup for some of our existing customers, and of course take it also jointly, use the satellite to provide services in all the other countries that the footprint covers.
Staff are working on plans to launch 2 new satellites in the next 5 years. The launch of NIGCOMSAT-1 a decade ago helped spur a telecoms revolution here in Nigeria.
The 12th edition of Dak'Art, the contemporary African art show, kicked off in the Senegalese capital on Tuesday. Over the next month, artists from all over the world will be exhibiting their work in sites across the city. Our correspondents were there for the grand opening.
Visitors were out in force for the opening of the International Art Exhibition, where 67 artists from 24 different countries are displaying their work. Visual arts, photos and installations, the theme of this year's show is re-enchantment. This life-size dice game questions the education sector in Nigeria.
2, 3, 4, and so I've landed on heads or tails. So I'm going to just my research efforts go unnoticed because my laboratory equipment is out of date. This year's theme with re-enchantments, it's, what are we doing to re-enchant Africa? And I think one of the first things is having these conversations, looking at what's empirical, have empathy for one another, and hopefully we move forward.
For young talent as well as artists of international renown, this biennial is a major event on the continent and one that deserves to be commended.
It's a national treasure that's really worth knowing about and that we must protect because it's what's going to set off a future art trade. People come to see. They need to want to see what's on offer.
These first comers to the show have been won over.
The exhibition reflects the quality of the evolution of art in Africa, and at the same time, the artist's attachment to everyday life.
I've really been enchanted.
Art enthusiasts have until June 2nd to view the many exhibits taking place for Dak'Art 2016.
Well, that's it for Across Africa this week. Thanks very much for joining us, and please do so again if you can. Take care.